further on. Mother of limestone fountains, my heart goes back with the setting sun. My heart is in the mountains.
The Most Excellent Hamilton Hatter, 1856 to 1942. Once enslaved near Charlestown, Virginia, Hamilton Hatter seizes opportunities to learn and overcome. At one college, he builds young minds and even its buildings, then launches another college in his beloved West Virginia, again building minds and buildings. But first, he had to overcome. And I can rejoice now in the belief that the school will go on. The children were of both sexes, ranging from 3 to 20 years of age, neatly and comfortably clad, well-fed, healthy, and cheerful, with an uncommon array of agreeable and intelligent countenances peering over the tops of their desks. Northern journalist John Trowbridge came to Charlestown in the early summer of 1865. A war-worn town with its ruins and seething, and 6 months before Hatter's school was opened there. At the end of a long hour's ride, we arrived at Charlestown, chiefly of interest to me as the place of John Brown's martyrdom. We alighted from the train on the edge of the boundless, unfenced fields, into whose melancholy solitudes the desolate streets emptied themselves. Rivers to that ocean of weeds. The town resembled to my eye some unprotected female sitting sorrowfully on the wayside in tattered and fading apparel, with unkempt tresses falling negligently about features which might once have been attractive. On the steps of the boarding house, I found an acquaintance whose countenance gleamed with pleasure at sight as he said, "Of a single loyal face in that nest of secession." He had been 2 or 3 days in the place waiting for luggage which had been miscarried. While Jefferson County, West Virginia, today is still small, the sentiment towards secession throughout the county before the Civil War varied widely with the hotbed of secessionist sentiment in the area around Charlestown and adjacent large farms. "They are all rebels here, all rebels," he exclaimed as he took his cane and walked with me. "They are a pitiable, poverty-stricken set. There is no money in the place, and scarcely anything to eat. We have for breakfast salt fish, fried potatoes, and treason. Fried potatoes, treason, and saltfish for dinner. At supper, the fare is slightly varied, and we have treason, saltfish, potatoes, and a little more treason. My landlady's daughter is Southern fire incarnate, and she illustrates Southern politeness by abusing Northern people and the government from morning till night for my especial edification. Sometimes I venture to answer her when she flies at me, figuratively speaking, like a cat. The women are not the only outspoken rebels, although they are the worst. The men don't hesitate to declare their sentiments in season and out of season. My friend concluded with this figure. The war feeling around here is like a burning bush with a wet blanket wrapped around it. Look at it from the outside, the fire seems quenched. Just peek under the blanket and there it is, all alive and eating in. The wet blanket is the present government policy, and every act of conciliation shown the rebels is just letting in so much air to feed the fire. The day Hamilton was born in April 1856, his father, 36-year-old Frank Hatter, appears to be working one of the Washington family homesteads in the county, and best evidence indicates his mother, 30-year-old Rebecca Hatter, was working with the family of Edward and Ann Isquith at their Charlestown home at Liberty Street, today Seminary Streets. It's not clear whether Hamilton, his brother George, who was born in 1853, and his sister Charlotte, born in 1858, lived with her parents or with Rebecca's parents, William and Maria McCord, who lived in Cabletown, and being neighbors of the large landowner there, Logan Osborne. School is the holy road. Overcoming in Hamilton Hatter's Charlestown, Virginia, 1865 to 1868. Once the Free Will Baptist Home Mission Society established a school to teach those now freed, Hamilton each day would walk to the school in Charlestown for freed African Americans, where he would commit the revolutionary act of learning to read, write, and think critically. Setting his footsteps on the long, hard, but enthralling road to high scholarship and achievement. December 1865. Anne S. Dudley was one of several young women coming from Maine, born by their Free Will Baptist faith to start mission schools in places like Charlestown. They were determined to free the minds of just freed African Americans, and in 1860, 27% of the county's residents were enslaved persons, but many had gone during the war. Dudley, also a graduate of Maine Seminary in 1864, and two other teachers who would teach at Charlestown came down by ship and train, likely with Baptist religious tracts. Miss Phoebe Libby and Mrs. M.W. Smith would teach in the Charlestown Mission School, too. Dudley wrote Silas Curtis December 23, 1865, from Harper's Ferry, about 8 miles from Charlestown. I am going to Charlestown to open a school there next week. The spirit that hung John Brown still lives, and the people are strongly opposed to schools for the freedmen there, as well as here. I go alone, but I trust the law and the Lord will shield me. More exactly, the townspeople at best were okay with teaching those once enslaved, but having refined women in public association with those they had enslaved breached a hackneyed assumption. And for a lady of the town to associate with such a woman as Miss Dudley from elsewhere, worse still from a Yankee state, would be social suicide in Charlestown. Dudley wrote, I could get no permanent boarding place for nearly 2 months, for it would have been a lifelong disgrace to board Yankee teachers, and the Rubicon once passed, there could be no return to friends and society. No more than over the hills of caste in India, as public sentiment was then. So, I was there alone, boarding myself and teaching day and night, until I had 150 scholars of all ages and complexions, teaching the rudiments of reading to all, from white to black, of all ages, from 4 to 55 years. For this shunning, Dudley could only find board and schoolroom all under the single roof of freed African-American blacksmith Achilles Dixon and his wife. It was located on the southeast corner of Samuel and Liberty Streets. The Freedmen's Bureau, officially the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, helped. First organized in July 1865, a month after Trowbridge's visit, the Bureau extended its jurisdiction to the Eastern Panhandle, seeing the need, and played a crucial role in enforcing the rights of the newly freed and their teachers, at a time when the West Virginia state government was unable to do so, especially in Jefferson County. In fact, the Bureau paid Miss Dudley's rent so she could have a schoolroom, albeit only 15 square feet. After being confronted with a mob, the troops with the Freedmen's Bureau gave her an escort. Nights, and Dudley slept with a good axe and 6-shooter at the head of my bed, resolved to sell my life as dearly as possible, if need be. Overwhelmed by work that prompted the Home Mission Society to replace the groundbreaking Dudley with 2 teachers instead of 1 in the spring of 1866, Dudley had written that February, "No one can ever know the anxiety I have felt and the effort I have had to make these 2 long months since I came here, occupying a rough log house cold as a barn, teaching and boarding in the same rooms because I could not get board elsewhere, sleeping there with no man or boy in the house for a single night, while the enemies of the school were threatening without, and not knowing what the next hour might bring. Hearing 100 different scholars recite lessons on a single day, doing my own work, receiving company, writing letters, etc., etc. And I can rejoice now in the belief that it will go on. Every day, coming through the little door was her fondest hope. Strother described them. The room is always full to overflowing. In summer, the attendance is reduced one half owing to the necessity of the older pupils going on to service or engaging in remunerative labor of some sort. The children were of both sexes, neatly and comfortably clad, well fed, healthy and cheerful, with an uncommon array of agreeable and intelligent countenances peering over the tops of the desks. They were also remarkably docile, orderly, and well-mannered, without a trace of the barbaric squalor and rudeness pertaining to the street corner brat of former days, occasionally found nowadays among those who didn't go to school. He goes on, while the majority of the pupils have come into existence since the Emancipation Proclamation, there is still a number older than that event, and some whose recollections antedate the Great War. Yet, in their career of schooling, they have all started even. It may also be observed that the great scholars are usually outstripped by the little ones, which only goes to confirm the generally received opinion that young plants are more easily transplanted and trained than older ones, more absolutely true in mind and morals than in horticulture. Dudley wrote to the Morning Star, the Free Will Baptist publication, "All the colored people manifested the greatest kindness towards us. I shall never forget the oft-repeated prayer, 'O Lord, bless the teacher that comes a far distance to teach us. Front and fight her battles and bring her safe home to glory, if you please, Jesus.'" The focus shifted to having a permanent school building. State law, due to amendments in 1865, segregated students by race. State law by 1867 also required moving the task of providing education to African Americans from the mission schools to the local school board. But before reorganization removed the Freedmen's Bureau altogether from Jefferson County in October 1868, Bureau leadership prodded the Charlestown's school board to build the new school, providing some 20,000 bricks and cash for materials to match revenues that the township board was to collect to build the permanent school for its African Americans. The school under new management opened in time for the fall session in 1868, the Freedmen Bureau men also engineered a suit. It led to a decision by Unionist leading Judge Ephraim B. Hall in the 10th District of the Circuit Court, reaffirming the right to an education for African Americans in that circuit. The ruling was then circulated and became a de facto policy throughout the state. Another teacher wrote in her diary, "And here I must confess that the teachers at Charlestown and Shepherdstown vehemently assert that the colored people of their charges will compare favorably with any. Appearances at Charlestown indicate as much." Wrote Strother how the school board finally came around tossing their low expectations. The County Commission of Examiners report most favorably of the general intelligence exhibited by the colored pupils, and of their progress in all the elementary branches of common school education. One of the bright faces in the classroom to benefit was the inquisitive Hamilton Hatter, who saw his world opening and vast through reading. It was the road to his future.
And many a hallowed memory claims and tribute of love from me. But Western Tempe further on, mother of limestone fountains, my heart goes back with the setting sun. My heart is in the mountains. There where the fringed tree nods its bloom, beneath the white pine shade, there where the laurel drops his blue, o'er many a wild cascade, there where the eagle seeks his nest, mother of limestone fountains, list to an exile's prayer for rest. My heart is in the mountains. The wide expanse of the boundless sea is a sight to stir the soul, and there is a breath of majesty in the western prairies roll. But give me the heights that milk the clouds and gather the dew in fountains. Give me the peaks with their misty shrouds. My heart is in the mountains. There's something blank in the landscape here, tame in the water's flow. I pine for a mountain atmosphere and a crag in the sunset's glow. King of the hills, Blue Ridge that I love, feed still the vale with fountains from rock and dale and mountain cove. My heart is in the mountains. My heart